Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome to episode 23 of Let's Talk Meditation with Heather Nieves. Today's episode is just simply titled Life Updates and How to Get Motivated After a Pause. I've been on a pause for the past 2 months and I'm back and I'm very nervous and excited. But let me reintroduce myself as a women's empowerment coach and founder of I Love Me Yoga. I absolutely love helping women learn to love themselves and step into their fullest potential so they can be more, so you can be more you. So, like I said, I haven't recorded an episode since July 7th. So that's been over 2 months, a longer pause than I anticipated, but I'm okay with it. I'm no longer willing to beat myself up. The, I, Sometimes we jump in sooner than needed, and sometimes the pause lasts longer than intended, but it's okay. It's not helpful for me to dwell, right? It's not helpful for you to dwell either. So I might just take off every summer or just pause as I am called. But I am here today and I am recommitted to weekly episodes. So I will be honest and say that part of me hesitated to jump back in because this might suck, right? I might stumble on my words. What if I struggle to deliver my message clearly? I'm congested. I have horrible allergies this time of year here in South Carolina. But when you have an inner nudge, when you have a sacred responsibility to share your message, things are inspiring me lately, and I cannot keep them to myself. So I decided I'm just going to show up, right? I've been very intentional about what I've been consuming this past few weeks, more audiobooks, paying attention to what I'm following on social media. I mean, I will be honest, this summer I was just simply entertained. I mean, that's what we love about the internet, the cute little babies and funny things online. But there's a point where it just is no longer fulfilling. And I realize what it's doing to me. So I will say, a coach and a podcaster that I follow talked about success and being consistent. And when I listen to things, I really take it to heart and do some reflection. And this person said, just simply show up, right? So I decided I'm willing to show up. So here I am. And I'm willing for it to suck, but I'm just got to take a step, right? That's how I create momentum. And I can't allow myself to be paralyzed by fear because I'm chasing perfectionism. How am I going to jump back into this? I took a long pause. What am I going to talk about? I remember when I started this podcast, February 2022, I created momentum and excitement by simply starting, right? So if you're not sure about the big picture, in whatever it is that you're doing in your business, you have an idea or you've kind of just done things here and there, just simply start. Take a step, right? When you're working out or on a weight loss journey or just really wanting to recommit to your strength and your health, you have to get to that first walk, that first exercise, that first meal that is going to nourish you. So I'm personally recommitting to that, right? Recommitted to weekly episodes. And if I don't know what to say, and if I don't know what to share, I remembered I know some amazing people that have great value to share. So I can interview them. I can learn from and share them with you listeners. So I think it's so beautiful and powerful when we do give ourselves permission to pause, to take a break. My mentor, Jen Kohler, she's reminded me the pause, it is the work. The pause is the work, right? Even when our mind is telling us otherwise, like some thoughts like, oh, you're lazy, or we're taught that our worth depends on our productivity and so on, those BS stories that we tell ourselves. But how often do we give ourselves space to just simply be, to enjoy life in the present moment without trying to achieve something? I understand that not all of us have the luxury or privilege to just stop working or pause business. especially when others are dependent on your income. But I truly believe there is always a way to honor the pause somehow. You can say no more often. You can simply rest, right? And by not doing, the chores can rest. The spending time with, saying no to some of those invitations, doing less, sleeping more. Our bodies and our souls need it, right? It's all divine timing, right? I was called for this pause. I canceled my annual retreat that happens late September, early October. And it's interesting how it all happened because I was just following the nudges. And then my mom called. She lives in New York, where I grew up in the Binghamton area, and she was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And so I actually was able, because I'm pausing and because my husband has a flexible schedule with his business, I was able to drive to New York from South Carolina to be there for her surgery. She does actually have one more surgery coming up. They are very hopeful, the doctors, everything is looking good. And then before I left, my husband had the flu or, something like that. But my son and I did not get sick, which was a blessing because then I was able to go be with my mom. And during this pause, we also found out that we're expecting. And I promise I will talk about that on another episode. I don't want that conversation to take up today's episode, but you can see how space was created for all that my attention was needed for. So when we step back and we pause and we reflect, we're like, wow, I'm so glad I honored this pause because life would have felt so chaotic. I was not teaching any yoga classes, or I paused those as well. So now the pause, it's like, oh, okay, I just rest and just simply be and be present with my son and my family and my household. I do have to be honest about it because, and I think the last time I did a live video on Facebook, I talked about how summer was depressing, and especially for, mothers. So I definitely had periods of sadness, depression, yet I also experienced joy. It was our son's birthday. I was able to spend time with my mom. I've been realizing that both can coexist, sadness and joy, depression and happiness. And I think a lot of times, and there's a big stigma around the word depression and, mental health and assuming it's suicide. And I know that's a very sensitive topic, but what I'm speaking to today is polarity, is that they can coexist. And when we allow ourselves to feel the full spectrum of our feelings rather than resist them, which is what this pause, this spaciousness allowed me to do. And when we don't expect constant happiness and we allow ourselves to feel, I've noticed that it doesn't feel as intense because I'm not resisting it, right? And I've definitely talked about this before on the podcast, but everything that we go through and we feel, it teaches us something. Right. In the low moments, I worried about how do I get back into all that I love doing? And this time also helped me to reflect on, like, what do I desire to do? What do I actually want to return to doing? What needs to change? What needs to shift? So it's about 12 to 13 hours to drive from South Carolina to New York, where my mom lives. And that's a lot of time to be with yourself and your thoughts. But it was really good for me. I really wanted to be inspired. So that's really when I started to listen to audiobooks. I love learning and growing, but I hadn't done it. There's a beauty in taking the pause. We don't always have to be growing. We don't always have to be learning. But when we miss something, that's the opportunities to say, hey, like when we're not meditating, oh, I missed that. This is my reminder to return to that which I'm being called to return to, right? So rather than beating ourselves up, oh, I miss learning, I miss growing, I miss feeling inspired. So we don't have to shame ourselves for leaving positive habits behind. We can simply just choose to see the beauty in noticing when we miss it. And when we realize how much those habits support us, that's when we get to decide, right? Either I can shame myself and beat myself up for not being consistent again, or I can simply be grateful for realizing and decide to make it part of my life again. So since I've gotten back home, it's been like a week and a half, not even, I've been checking in with myself and I desire to stay inspired. So I also have been thinking about who am I surrounding myself with? So yesterday, there's a woman that I admire. She has a successful business in town. I said, I would really love to get lunch with her. She came to one of my yoga classes a couple of months ago and said, hey, I'd love to do lunch sometime. Guess what? She admires me too. And she was grateful for the invitation. So I'm listening to my audiobooks. I'm listening on money and mindset. I'm returning to my daily meditation. And I really feel like I'm on the other side and I'm excited for life each day again. And it feels good to feel good, but I gave myself space to feel all the other things. I think that's what's most important about this. So I want to talk about motivation because that was the title of today's episode was how do we get motivated after a pause? So Mel Robbins always reminds us anything, it's a muscle, right? Meditation, confidence, motivation is a muscle. Confidence is a muscle. Meditation takes practice. So does success and wealth. So we must practice. We must be willing to just take a step, be willing to suck. I know that's the hardest part, but in those moments we learn. And I want you to remember that those desires that you have are there because they are possible. So Bob Proctor says, and many others, if you can have it in your head, you can have it in your hand, right? If you can have it in your heart, you can have it in your hand. If you have it in your mind, it can exist for real. So I'm gonna be talking more about money and wealth and prosperity and thriving and tapping into your highest potential on this podcast. And meditation and movement and yoga, all of it plays a part. I'll be creating money mantra meditations as solo episodes. And always staying in alignment with who I am, being vulnerable and honest and real. When my mind wanted to convince me out of this idea, tell me I'm an imposter, I shouldn't be talking about money, I'm going to share with you what's worked for me, what inspires me. I decided I'm not going to entertain those thoughts. I talked about this on this podcast, is that this is the power of the mind. We have to interrupt the loop, the pattern when we notice. So that's why it's so powerful to have a meditation practice. This is Let's Talk Meditation with Heather Nieves podcast, right? We can just simply decide, am I going to entertain those thoughts that are telling me that I'm an imposter? I shouldn't be talking about money. This is a meditation podcast. Well, guess what? I'm listening to audiobooks about money. And you know what the daily recommendation is? Have a meditation practice, have a movement practice, right? Self-love, it's all connected to money because money is energy. It's simply an exchange, right? It's something that we all need to be talking about more often. I even had a chat with my son about it this morning because I really want to make sure that we're raising him to be humble. He's an only child right now. And he likes to brag that he has a lot of money, but I don't ever want him to make others feel bad for not having it, right? So, hey, I have this money, but guess what? The money is an exchange for a service, for goods. So I wish I grew up learning all of this about money, but I'm not going to sit in regret. I just sit in gratitude for all that I've learned in my life thus far. And I take it as a sacred responsibility to teach it to my son and to all of you, right? We got to release the shame surrounding money, heal our relationship. I mean, I've been doing this work for years and I'm going to continue to. As a mother, as a partner, I believe that is extremely important for us to have our own individual income, especially in relationships, right? Money is an exchange that allows us freedom and options. And oftentimes when we become mothers, we sacrifice that, our individuality, our contribution. Does it have to be that way? No, right? And I'm making steps so that, when I give birth in February, there's still an opportunity for me to receive, right? And we are all worthy of receiving all of the money that we desire. I just feel really passionate about speaking to the mothers that sacrifice this. And regardless of the dynamic in your relationship, my husband and I don't fight about money. It's not like, hey, this is mine, this is yours. But there are things that I desire that help me be more me, right? And that I deserve and that I am worthy of. And so are you. So expect more of these conversations. When I was on Instagram the other day in my stories, a few people responded to me saying, yes, we need to talk about money. Get curious about money. We are curious by nature. So I encourage you to stay curious about your potential and all of the possibility surrounding you. You're meant to keep growing and thrive. And just by simply living your life, right? By being more you, by tapping into your fullest potential, you inspire and birth awesomeness in others by simply just living your life. So I feel like I broke it down when I wrote the notes yesterday about how to get motivated after a pause, because I really want to break it down simply. Number one, take a step, right? Number two, what are you listening to? What are you consuming? How much time are you spending on social media? Who are you surrounding yourself with? Do you have a meditation practice? These are important things. Are you allowing yourself to be supported? Oftentimes I have to do it all on my own. Well, I have mentors. And then they remind me of my potential. They remind me of my greatness when I forget. So this work is a remembering. And I get to a point where I remind myself. But in those moments that I forget, I allow myself to be supported. So I'm going to be diving into all of this deeper with the women that are called to work with me one-on-one. I'm opening up 3 spots beginning October 1st, 2022. For the rest of the year, we'll go on a 90-day journey. I have 2 options available, and you can do 3 one-on-one sessions, 1 per month, or we can do, I think, 8 to 10 one-on-one sessions for 90 days. That's the devoted unfolding. And we'll see what we can create together. I will meet you where you are, right? Help you to see your potential, remind you of your greatness, help you to tap into all that you are and be more you. So just reach out to me on social media or email me at ilovemeyoga@gmail.com if your soul is calling you to say yes to this journey, because I would absolutely be honored to work with you. This episode makes me smile. So thank you for listening. Stay tuned for weekly episodes, upcoming interviews, and guided meditations with lots of money mantras. And these are going to support you on your journey to loving yourself, tapping into your potential, becoming wealthy, and being more you. Just know that I love and appreciate you. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Tag me on Instagram at I am Heather Nieves, or right on Facebook, my I Love Me Yoga page, or just my personal page, Heather Nieves. You can rate this podcast on Spotify or review it on Apple. It would mean the world to me. I will talk to you soon, beautiful soul.